e1, giving lines, for example, like queen to e7, knight into b5, leaping in, the knight again has d6, a rook might land on c7. A lot of advantages here for white. Nevertheless, it's not so easy. This king is a little bit suspect because this dark square bishop will remain on the board for quite some time. So has Robson judged this so acutely, so finely, that he thinks he still has enough compensation to save the day? Well, it looks like for sure he's not winning this position. He's got to be thinking about maybe drawing, and Lenderman has to feel like, hey, I can really put my foot on his neck and take the driver's seat here in the championships. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Wow, 3.5 out of 4 would be no joke for Alexander Lenderman, not one of the tournament rating favorites.
That would be huge, and boldly stating the obvious, the pre-tournament favorite and defending champion Gata Kamsky can't win a single game after 3 rounds. So Gata could easily find his title slipping away by just simply drawing too many games. And to start with 3.5 out of 4 is simply huge, huge. Something went wrong for Ray there. When he sacrificed the exchange, I didn't think it was that bad. But playing for, or rather achieving the position he has on the board right now, that's a failure for the rook sacrifice. That's really bad.
Well, you were mostly not looking at knight d5, which is illogical because the lines that you were looking at, the rooks weren't open because the files were closed.
Well, exactly.
So that was like your instinct to look for lines where it was a little bit more closed and the minor pieces could have a little bit of fun.
Precisely. Just to repeat what you mean, what you're saying there, Jennifer, is that when you sacrifice an exchange, which is fine, I mean, you can sacrifice the exchange in lots and lots of positions, you just don't want to open up the game on lots of files because your opponent has the rooks, and open files are the ideal for rooks. So when Ray went in for this trade, he really should not be trading pawns. And essentially, he lost the c5 pawn. In the line that I was looking at, I was kind of expecting that Ray was going to play the position slowly, and I had talked about knight a4, utilizing the bishop, keeping the position somewhat closed, and playing for b5 and a5, the line I had mentioned. Instead, Ray went for what for me was very counterintuitive. He traded the pawn on d5, opening up the d file for the rook. For the c5 pawn, there was this exchange, and now another pawn disappears. Bishop takes f7 check. King went back into the corner, and as Maurice was mentioning, well, just bring your rook to the open file, and suddenly both of White's rooks are tremendous in this position, and so I think Ray is in deep trouble. Certainly, he better hope, Black had better hope, that he can generate some kind of threats, because otherwise he'll just lose this game without a shout.
That's right. So a pretty instructive lesson there on the power of the rook. So we have some winners for our chess.com contest. So keep those questions coming because we're going to continue to give those prizes out for the rest of the week. So the hashtag US Chess Champs, or you can use comments at stlouischessclub.org. Congratulations to Bill Schaefer and Michael Mulford, who won chess.com memberships for their questions submitted to comments at stlouischessclub.org. And also congrats to kids, Tristan, Isaac, Ethan, and Dylan, who win gold memberships to chesskid.com. A great place for kids to go and learn the game, and also a very safe and secure site for online chess play. So keep your questions coming, and you know, it makes it a lot of fun.
Small world. When I started playing chess in 1972, one of the players that was in the Seattle chess scene was a guy by the name of Michael Mulford. So if it's the same Mike, a shout out to say hello. It's been a while.
Great, and we'd love to hear from you. And we've got some breaking news from Grandmaster Ashley on another one of our top-rated players. Alexander Onishchuk hasn't won a game yet, but is this it?
Is this it?
This is going to be it. He is all over Sam Shankland right now. I mean, it looks like it's all over but the crying right now in this position. Look at this game. It was really quiet. Nothing much was going on, and he played this nice bishop to b5 move, and Sam decided to play this move h6, which I didn't think was anything. The bishop could simply have dropped back, but Onishchuk saw a fine point here. He said, let me take and weaken this piece here, and then I'm just going to take over the c file, which you'll never have ever again in life. The move bishop to d3 was played. Now rook to c7, attacking the pawn. And Sam decided to jettison this pawn with this move, a5, figuring that this pawn would just be too weak to be able to ever push. You know what? He said, I don't need your pawn. You can defend that one, but let's get back to this guy, the weakness on g5. What quick play, what fine play. And after rook a to b8, he said, munch, first pawn gone. And now this trade happened, takes, and then suddenly, bam, a second pawn ripped off the board. This bishop cannot be accepted because of the classic mating line after rook takes, king over, rook check, king over, and mate. So now suddenly down 2 pawns is Sam. He played this move, bishop to c4, which will win back this pawn, but it's not going to be enough because after a bishop to f5, rook takes b2, and now the move h4, these white pieces are swarming over the king, and it's very difficult to defend this position right now. If you try to push your own pawn, here comes the move e6, just ripping that king apart. Now, of course, a3 would lose to takes on f7. You can't move your king because of rook mates, and this is not going to help because of check. And again, you actually have to block, and now bishop to e6 check and give us the rook, and mating ideas are coming all over the place. So this position is just dead busted. He's hanging on by his fingernails, is Sam Shankland. All Onishchuk has to do now is find the right sequence, and Sam is in deep trouble. Back to you, Jen and Yas.
Wow, one of the things I love about chess is that whether you're looking at amateur games or the top players, you deal with the same basics on some level.
Oh,
a lot of times you don't get to see that double rook checkmate actually occur, but that's just what we're teaching somebody who's learning the game.
Absolutely, sure.
And we saw that earlier in the tournament.
Right, this pattern recognition, and these patterns in chess are repeating time and time again. And I was just going to say, this is what makes Alex Onishchuk such a formidable competitor here in these championships. He started the tournament slowly, but in his own view, solidly. 3 draws, but great preparation by Alex. Once he's given an opportunity, he doesn't let it get away. Python-like style. He manages to garner a few couple of wins, and in a slow-scoring tournament, he must hate that Lenderman might go at 3.5 out of 4, but in a slow-moving event, he could be looking for the title.
That's right.
This is right now, I'm agreeing with Maurice completely. This is a smashing position, and it's looking really good for Onishchuk. And I just might say, from a different point of view, a very human line of play might be. I appreciate that bishop f5 is probably a superb move. From a human point of view, it's nice to play like this, h5.
That bishop on e6 remains tethered.
Right, it kind of like remains tethered, and you start looking at lines that go like this, right, where you take advantage of the fact that the bishop stands on e6. Probably bishop f5, the computer move is stronger, but these are the type of lines that I'm sure Onishchuk is calculating.
More than one way to win.
Perhaps more than one way to win, and h4, h5, h6 is
you have
kind
to be
of
a little careful because the pawn on a4 is not that
Of course,
slow.
of course. I mean, it may end up costing you a rook.
Like even here, you know, maybe king h7 is looking for some, because
h7.
now I'm actually threatening to take the rook, and bishop takes f7 allows rook takes f7. So there are a couple little trickies here and there. But I guess you were wanting to point out that maybe h7 at the end of that variation or something.
Right, but I was also going to say...
Because that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, oh, would you like...
F7.
Oh, yeah, you want to show that. Okay. So bishop takes f7. Jennifer, you got the tactics, girl.
But does this even work, though?
Oh, no, because
Rook
of
B8.
Rook B8, you bet.
So there's always one more. You always got to look one more move forward.
Exactly. I was thinking that after this position, by the way, the kind of checkmate that Maurice
So instead
was
of Rook
showing.
G7, Rook F6, continuing to the pin.
Right.
I mean, keeping that bishop taboo.
Exactly. And this is one of our back rank checkmates is about to appear here. Very human way of reeling the victory home, so to speak.
You're just trying to get our viewers at home in shape with all these 20 push-ups that they have to do every time they see a back rank on the board, right?
There you go. There you go. Absolutely.
You know, both players definitely into exercise as well as chess. It's always really important. In fact, Alexander Onishchuk is a triathlete. So that's how he keeps up with these youngsters.
Right.
By working really hard. That's how you do it, right?
And by the way, next to the Chase Hotel, where all the players are staying, is really one of the most beautiful parks in the whole of America, Forest Park. And the players are really going out and training. And even though there's been some very warm days here in St. Louis, they love that park, and you'll see them running and walking. They do speed walking and runs all over the place. It's great.
Right. And keep your eyes open for a men's health issue that's coming up, which has a little profile on some of the importance of chess and fitness.
Wonderful.
And we've got Grandmaster Ashley with some more of the exciting action this round.
Well, it's not an explosion happening in this game, but very important development for the players who would love to see Gata Kamsky keep drawing his way, stay sleepy, and don't win any games at all in these here championships. He is playing against Sergei Ehrenberg, and something interesting happened after he started with the Trumpovsky. We have an original position on the board. He decided to open up the game with the move E4. We know Gata can play restrained chess, but here he tried to open up the game a bit with this move, E4, D takes E4, knight takes E4, and Ehrenberg probably surprised him with castles queenside. This is not something that you would expect to see so often after this pawn has pushed. It looks a little airy, but it's actually Houdini's first choice. It thinks this is a great move that was played, and now castles, and Ehrenberg blew open the position with the move E5. He actually could have started with F5 and get some pressure on the position, but now E5, and this is probably equal according to Houdini. It looks as though black is going to be completely fine here. If you take on E5, then that runs into knight takes E5. Take a look at that discovered attack on the queen, and then it's just some simple stuff that's trade off and put a queen in the middle like this, and white has no advantage whatsoever. So Kamsky can't be happy with lines like this, considering he's 4 rounds in and hasn't won a game in the championship yet. I don't think he's done that in a long while. So we'll see how he handles the rest, and we're going to go to commercial break. We'll be back soon here at the 2014 U.S. Chess Championships.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, part of the admissions team here at Paul Mitchell School St. Louis. Our campus is located on Maryland Plaza, right here in the gorgeous Central West End.
I chose Paul Mitchell, the school St. Louis, because I visited other schools, and when I was at them, I just felt like the energy level wasn't the same. It wasn't as elevated as it is here. When I came here, it just felt right. Everybody looked great. Everybody had such a great attitude. The facility was really clean and just so much more advanced.
Technology can truly enhance your education. When we brought in Chromebooks and we started using the smart TVs, we really tapped into the 21st century learner.
Being a student at Paul Mitchell is great because the learning leaders, they're there to guide you in the right direction. They give you the opportunity to make decisions on your own.
They accept you for who you are, and they're always welcome and honest and open.
We have encouraged our guests to post Google reviews. So far to date, have over 100 reviews with an average rating of 4.5 stars.
So I like that this isn't just for hair and beauty, but it's also a business college. You can learn hair, you can brush it, you can tease it, you can learn all of that, but to do business, that's something that really takes a whole different level of education.
Whether we're in the classroom or at the color bar, we're always having a great time at Paul Mitchell, the School St. Louis. Being a student at Paul Mitchell gives you a lot of opportunity for when you're ready to get out into the real world.
Thank you for taking a sneak peek of our campus, and we can't wait for you to come and see what a Paul Mitchell education can do for you.
Welcome back to the 2014 U.S. Chess Championships and U.S. Women's. Thank you guys for your questions and comments. We've got some good ones coming in. Irina Zenyuk tweeted that she's spending the free day at the St. Louis Art Festival.
Oh, nice.
So nice that she's not just holed up in a room studying chess, but enjoying all the culture and art that St. Louis has to offer.
Which is quite considerable, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah, wonderful historical buildings very near here in the Central West End. Sorry, continue.
And a beautiful zoo, beautiful botanical gardens, just off the charts. So Museolog on Twitter. And we've also got a question, when do you tend to spend the majority of your clock time? How much of it is influenced by your opponent's speed? And that's from Axel Ammer. That's a good question. I think the point is, though, that the top players in the country and the world are the best at that because time management is a critical part of the game. So the weaker the player, the less they know when to think, right?
Well, yeah, well, absolutely. One of the comments that former world champion Boris Spassky said in an interview that really stuck with me, when asked why he was the world champion and he was first amongst equals and such things, and what distinguished him from the other great players of the time. He said he had a great sense for when was the critical moment and when to use his clock. That was like profoundly interesting, right? That he sensed this is the moment that I have to spend some time because this is the key moment. And his opponents didn't really have such an acute sense and would spend their time perhaps in the wrong position. So that really is a good question. And the difference in grandmaster levels is just small little key things. And it was something like that that really stuck with me. The sense of the critical moment and when to spend your... Yes. New in chess.
Very interesting. Wow. I like that. And another question we have, Joseph Donahue asks, how much of Kamsky's drawn record up to this point do you attribute to people being extra conservative about him, against him?
Well, I don't say it's extra conservative. At the moment, one of the things that Gata is running into is really great preparation. His opponents are well prepared for him in particular. That's why you saw this kind of move, the Trompowsky move, bishop g5, trying to avoid the deep preparations that his opponents have prepared. At the same time, when you play a move like bishop g5, I think you're kind of giving up a lot of white's opening advantage. And Maurice was, during our break there that we just had, Maurice and I were looking at Kamsky's game against Ehrenberg in some depth, and we were having a real hard time finding a way for Gata to mix it up because we think the position is really even. In this moment, Gata did try to play he did in fact play the move c5. We were looking at the queen dropping back to the c7 square.
Brave Ehrenberg. The last time he castled queenside in this tournament as black, bad things happened.
Okay.
But he doesn't let that get to him.
No. And we were looking at captures on e5, knight captures c5. So again, the material equality is being kept. And a key move that Maurice pointed out is you do want to get your king kind of safely tucked in over here on the king side.
Right, and it doesn't seem like either player has much of an attack. Of course, the key difference in this position is that in the last one, there was actually a bishop on g2. you know, just raking through the entire diagonal and giving him massive issues. Here, it's just...
There's no bishop.
It's just a position where the kings happen to be on opposite sides.
Right.
Usually that indicates an attack, but not when there's so much simplification.
Right. And in this position, it's very easy to see that the open D file, black is very happy. He'll put his bishop on the Italian diagonal, looking at white's king. The D file's a chopping block. And Maurice and I are sitting there going, wow, when is Gata going to get into stride and defend his title? Because if he just keeps drawing, and we're seeing Lenderman having success after success, wow, this title, this championship and Gata's title are going to slip away.
That's right. It is luckily for him an 11-round tournament, so he still has time to kind of get his groove, but he better get it pretty soon.
Exactly. Time is ticking.
Totally balanced, I think. I mean, that queen on e4 is a strong piece, but at the same time, that bishop on c5, you gotta, in this particular position, it seems to be working harder than the knight on f3. So.
Exactly.
Like, for instance, even e6 move, a lot of times we're going to have to worry about a queen takes g3 at the end of the variation.
Indeed, maybe immediately a queen takes g3 thanks to this bishop on c5. The f2 pawn's in an absolute pin, and you've got to be concerned that you might blunder your g3 pawn if you're not looking carefully enough.
Right, so just keeping the balance here, Ehrenberg.
Right.
And one more question I wanted to point out, because we have this beautiful view right here in the webcam. We have a question from Ryan Harmson, and he asked about the talented youth that we have in America. What do you feel like is necessary in order to have a U.S. player as a top contender in the years to come? Well, we do already have one top contender, that's Hikaru Nakamura.
Absolutely.
How do we make more Nakamuras and maybe even get another couple players in that top 10? Now, we should also point out that Fabiano Caruana did start his chess career here in America. So
Certainly.
we can kind of half claim him.
Yeah,
He's an American citizen,
certainly.
but he does play for Italy officially.
Right, exactly. And I think that really, like wonderful plants, you need fertile soil. So you need cities like St. Louis, chess clubs like St. Louis, competitions like the U.S. Championships that encourage generations of youngsters to put down the basketball and pick up the chess night.
That they might get a reward at the end of the rainbow.
Exactly. And to that question, by the way, one of the things I think is really been fantastic for American chess is, unlike any other time that I can ever think of in my whole chess career, universities and colleges are giving scholarships to skilled chess players. For example, here in St. Louis, you have the Lindenwood University chess team, as well as Webster's, where...
Yeah, Ray Robson goes to Webster University.
Yes. And so the recognition that colleges and universities are giving to chess is marvelous. That has serious rippling effects way down the line.
Oh, right. That's absolutely true. This is the best time, I think, for chess in America that I've seen. Of course, people say the Fischer era was awesome, but it's a new time.
Yeah, it was the Fischer boom really was a kind of an elite type of deal where you really got players wanting to become world champions. But what's happening today is you're getting the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you go to the Super Nationals, for example, you'll see 5,000 competitors at the Super Nationals.
That happens every 4 years, and you actually have over 2,000, which was a record 2,200 plus in just the elementary nationals. Another thing we should mention is the Kasparov Young Stars program, which is the KCF St. Louis Chess Club program. You've also got the Shine Friedman camps. That was started by Mark Shine and Aviv Friedman.
Yes.
And they bring great chess camps to encourage our top youth. Also, my brother started the U.S. Chess School.
And the U.S. Chess League, too.
That's right. And the U.S. Chess School is going to have a session actually coming up in St. Louis with all of the top girls in the country.
Fantastic.
And I'm going to be doing that one with Greg. So.
And those chess camps, by the way, I'm not going to say they're a recent phenomenon because they've been around quite a number of years. But on the other hand, there's been an explosion of the numbers of chess camps as well as the number of students who are at the camps.
And the number of elite ones. These aren't just chess camps that are open to everyone. This is open to kids who show that they've got what it takes.
Right.
And we've got a comment from Grandmaster Ashley.
Well, just wanted to jump to a game which may be the first victory of the day. We're predicting from the game Onishchuk versus Shankland. And Onishchuk in this position, after having his pawn captured on b2, decided to play not bishop f5, but the move bishop to d7, controlling the pawn on a4, pawn on a5 from going to a4, and getting ready to ram his pawn down Shankland's throat. Get that out right, Shankland's throat with the move e6. Now, if that is stopped with the move rook to e2, then Onishchuk is prepared to make a pawn storm. Dominant position on this side. He's about to play the move f5. If you try to attack some pawns, forget it. It's just all going to be pawns everywhere. f6, and then this move e6, and this position is just ugly after takes, check. Of course, that pawn was looking to go to e7 and grab yet another pawn, and the position is just ridiculous. A move like bishop to d3, trying to chase the rook out wouldn't help because of this, and rook g8 is coming, and it's just really horrible. It looks as though Shankland will not be able to even stave off immediate defeat. It looks so bad right now. It's up to Onishchuk in this moment, and it looks like it has happened, actually. Rook e2 has happened, and all he has to do is play f4, and instead he's played e6 immediately. Not the most dominating move, certainly a good one as well. Let's back that up to the moment here. He did play rook to e2 here, and e6 was played. This is definitely a good move, but the computer is not as impressed by this move, and it thinks that after a4, black has some fighting chances. So interesting development here. f4 would have just been dominant, f4, f5, and go all the way home. Instead, he's played a4 and seems to, e6, and seems to have given his opponent a chance with this move a4. Still winning for him after rook to a7. So we know Onishchuk is the kind of guy who likes to play control chess. Guess he didn't want to go into those wide lines he has, but f4, f5, f6 looked really, really good. What do you think?
Well, this is the old problem with chess, that sometimes you have an embarrassment of riches. Definitely a dominating position for Alex Onishchuk. Wide choice, f4, f5, very natural to get that pawn storm going. But the strangest thing is I was looking at the immediate e5, e6 as well because of that checkmate that you had pointed out, the classical rooks on the seventh rank.
Can you call the game up for us? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Let me just bring that game
Too many
up.
good moves, like too many party invitations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me get that one up on our screen. Got before. And just to show the line that we were talking about, again, Maurice was pointing out that f4, f5, f6, that was really going to be a decisive continuation for white. But I too like this move e5, e6 because I was attracted to the same checkmate that Maurice had been showing earlier, which was that black could not capture the pawn thanks to the classic double rooks.
Nice little smother made. If that rook was not on f8, this would not be checkmate.
Yes, if this rook were, the king would have a square. But this was the checkmate that every chess player is familiar with, experienced chess player. It's a pattern we all like to execute. And so that was why the move e5, e6 I found attractive. No doubts that the move a5, a4, I know my squares, I can get that out. a4 is black's best. And then one line, if there was a lot of trading going on, for example, captures, check, check, captures, captures. it looks like white's a nice, healthy 2 pawns to the good, but at the end of this line, there's this little nasty rook to e4 with the idea of winning one of the pawns that he's behind back. And Sam can definitely fight from this position. This isn't an easy win by any stretch of the imagination. So it may turn out, unfortunately, that the attractive-looking move e5, e6 was not white's best in that position, and that just going f4, f5 was, in fact, the right way to proceed.
So the best-looking move is not always the best one.
Yeah, what's really strange is sometimes the very most natural move in the position, developing a piece or doing something that everybody would do, turns out to be wrong. That's really the confounding one. That's where grandmasters just shake their head and say, something's wrong with the rules of chess. The laws get turned upside down.
Well, usually though, that intuition that you develop does work. So it's the
Absolutely.
exceptions.
It's and they're very rare, of course.
And we have Naroditsky versus Ramirez. We got the pleasure to speak to Daniel Naroditsky's mom just a little bit earlier in the show.
Okay.
And how's he doing in this position against
It's been a while.
Ramirez?
Let's take a look.
Ramirez coming off a tough loss from yesterday.
Where, again, he was outgunned in the opening in that game, and Maurice has been very generous in his praise for Daniel's approach to this game. Let's just go back a few more moves, because this move, knight c4, this is a very unusual construction with the double knights on c3 and c4. You take that c2 pawn, however, and you put it on c5, and
you like it better?
It's a thing of beauty, actually. With the pawn on c2, the double knights looks kind of funny.
Well, that's why you don't play 1e4 that much, right?
Well, if I could get these positions, I might. I'd take it up. Okay, so knight b6 was played, and after the trade, Alejandro took a long. He made the decision to take with the pawn, and in the long term, those double pawns on b7 and b6 could come back to haunt him. So in a sense, what we're talking about critical positions, that was a very important recapture. The game continued bishop b2, castles, bishop d3, all very natural moves from both sides. Finally, we see black connecting his rooks with the move bishop d7.
So by your definition, this is the beginning of the middle game.
Correct, and it makes it very easy to understand the 3 phases of the game. Bishop d7, pardon me, to go to c6 to try to activate the bishop. Knight e4, white opens up the long diagonal for his own bishop. Then we see a trade. Queen takes e4.
Threat.
Let's just see. The battery, thanks to the support of the bishop.
And there are 3 main ways to stop this. It looks like black chose f5, and let's invite Grandmaster Ashley into this conversation.
Absolutely.
Who do we like here?
Well, I hate the fact that the knights are off the board, first of all, because now everything is about linear pieces. But I do like the fact for white that all those weaknesses are in the position. Look at those weaknesses on b6, b7, and particularly now the new one, the fresh one, on e6. We talk about the principle of 2 weaknesses. Dvoretsky made this idea popular, the idea being that your opponent may have one weakness, it may not be enough to win the game, but a secondary weakness will allow you to stretch your opponent's defenses. Now, in this case, the weaknesses are pretty close. They're not that far apart, but still, it looks like white has no real issues at all in his position, I mean, at all, while black has to be concerned about those weak pawns and that bishop on the long diagonal, and then other things coming, rooks to the open files as well.
Well, I think it was a product of necessity, though, because if we had played g6, then perhaps our dark squares would be irreparably weak.
Yeah, but that's a bad sign. If you got to start making more weaknesses because of mate threats, the guy's going to start milking you. And I think maybe he can hold here with precise moves, but if I see this position, I'm taking white 9 times out of 10. Or, well, probably 10 out of 10, and trying to hold on for dear life if I had the black pieces. I would be feeling like I'm going to lose. If I were playing Yaz, for example, with the with the black pieces, I would think someday I'm going to lose this game. It's not going to be pretty.
No. The move f7, f5, another very critical decision. Very easy. This is the type of game you can lose as black without necessarily making any further mistakes from this point onwards. It's like white has a lot of pluses in the position. So if black, Alejandro, is going to save this game, he can't mess around. He doesn't have any luxury here. Whereas Daniel has a lot of choices here. The first question Daniel really has to ask himself is, would he like to force the trade of queens, which he could with the move queen e5 because of the threat of checkmate on g7. So the first question Daniel's got to ask himself, is it better to play the middle game with the queens on the board or off the board? If he decides it's better to play with the queens on the board, he'll likely step back with his queen, keep eyeballing this weakness on e6, which is, Maurice has just mentioned, is a new weakness in the position.
Now he would like to play bishop c4 perhaps at some moment, so probably black will prevent that by sticking a rook on c8.
Right. We talk about the drawback of the move f5. The move f5 does have one positive thing going for him. First of all, it gains a tempo, and in case of the queen dropping back, we do have this move bishop d6 picking up a second tempo. If white stops to keep his pawn, his h2 pawn protected with the move h3, then at least with the pawns on e5 and f5, black is going to get some counterplay for sure in this position, and that was why I was questioning whether or not Daniel may want to play queen e5.
Let's see. It seems like they have played a couple of moves. You want to
Okay,
refresh
sure.
and see if we've gotten any decision there? It's very important when you have a decision about whether or not to trade queens, because that can really drive the game in a very different direction. I see people, when you're talking about sensing the critical moment, how do great players do it? Well, I think they develop it through a lot of intuition, but there's also like some concrete things. If there's a queen trade on the menu, it's a good sign that's something you should think about.
Right. Well, first of all, you calculate the forcing lines first, right? And if you can calculate your way to a clear advantage, well, bang, you don't even go any further than that. But if the position is really flexible, and you have to find some subtle and quiet moves, that's a different one. That's where really just study, practice is going to develop what you call your intuition, but really, as we know, it's the recognition of, it's pattern recognition from study. By the way, Daniel did offer a trade of queens, but he wanted to do it on different terms. You had mentioned that you'd like to bring that bishop to the c4 square so you could eyeball the e6 pawn. So he offered a trade of queens with queen c4. Alejandro declined to bring white's bishop to the c4 square. Daniel stepped back with his queen to b3, keeping pressure on this e6 pawn. We have seen king h8 in order to release the pawn from a pin, and rook d1, bringing the rook to the open file, bishop d6, a move I mentioned a moment ago, attacking the h-pawn, and I think we're up to date here. I am anticipating that Daniel will probably play h2, h3, and Alejandro is stuck, I think, here. This is just a nice position for white.
That's right. So Naroditsky with an advantage, Onishchuk with an advantage, Lenderman with an advantage. Lots to be excited about today at the championship, where it looks like perhaps the men or the participants in the U.S. Chess Championship are taking over for the women and creating lots of decisive results today.
Well, we all hope so. I mean, we've had 3 rounds of 18 games, 6 games per round. And of the 18 games played in the first 3 rounds, we've seen some really pitched battles, but only 4 decisive games. So a very low percentage of decisive games.
So plenty of moves and plenty of excitement.
Exactly. But here's the point. I kind of expected that, because I feel that this is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, U.S. championship ever to be held. In all Grandmaster field, very, very, very tough competitors, great resourceful players. So
lots of talent, indeed.
Wow, yeah, the
and
best.
We've got a quick thought from Grandmaster Ashley.
Indeed, Jen, it looks as though Onishchuk has made his life much more difficult than he needed to. We saw this position where it looked as though f4 was tremendous right now. If he had played it, he would have had a dominating position. Just pushing his pawn down the board was easy, no problem. He had different ways to win, as a matter of fact. Bishop f5 was another one. Instead here, he chose the move e6. And the resourceful Sam Shankland found the move a4, creating his own problem here to deflect this bishop away. And now Onishchuk made a move that was suboptimal. He played the move rook to e5, trying to force his pawn forward. And in this position, after a trade takes, Sam got rid of this pawn on e6, and now bishop takes, e6 check, and king to h7. And they're on this move right now after rook to a7. This position, the computer is saying, yeah, you're up a pawn, but it's kind of funny. It's not that dominant roller we saw a second ago where there was absolutely no counterplay. Now, Onishchuk loves positions like these. These are the kind of positions where he excels. Technical, dry, no chances for the opponent. So maybe he felt very comfortable going into this line. He's definitely still better, maybe even close to winning, but it's a much harder task he set himself. When we come back from the break, we'll see if he can do what he needs to win this game and get in the driver's seat here in the U.S. Championship. Back after this.
Well, actually, we've got something for you during the break. We've got another puzzle.
I was about to say.
I'm
anxious to solve
Don't
one.
rush too much. Bisquire Fisher, 1967. Black to move again. Poor Bisquire. We're really beating up on him this time.
Okay, he deserves it. Deserves it.
Welcome back to the 2014 U.S. Chess Championships. We do have our first result of the round. Well, actually, we have two results, but our first decisive result of the round. So Alexander Onishchuk has defeated Sam Shankland.
All right.
But the puzzle.
The puzzle.
Yeah,
Did you get it?
First, we got the puzzle. Bobby Fischer in this position against Bisquire. So we've been beating up on Bisquire today. Fischer played bishop takes e4. Nice bishop sacrifice. After the bishop captures on e4, king a4, and black's just going to come in with all the pawns, right?
Exactly.
So, kind of brutal. And it only took another 6 moves until Bisquire resigned this position. Our other result that we have in for Dell's game was a draw against Jacobian.
Right.
But right now, we actually have Grandmaster Sam Shankland, and he graciously came down after his defeat to talk with Maurice Ashley.
Thanks, Jen. We are with Grandmaster Sam Shankland. He looked at the puzzle, and in about half a second, he said, I assume it's bishop takes e4, right? So he still has his skills. Sorry for the loss. Thanks for joining us, however.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure.
So what went wrong this game?
I felt kind of like a monkey. I prepared this line and just saw after bishop g6, the computer said equal, and just kind of like an idiot, just pressed the space bar and put the bishop on e2. And he played bishop b5, which I hadn't checked because it probably wasn't the computer's first choice. And then I just started calculating, and somehow I got the sense I'm just much worse. And so I felt like I kind of was just the idiot pressing buttons and not actually a guy playing real chess. So probably h6 was a very poor decision. After he took on d7 and hg5, I'm not. I think what I missed was I miscounted tempi after rook fc1. I thought I could play rook f to b8.
Hold on, let's get that since our audience is early in the game.
I think it's yeah. Okay, so move
here. H6 was.
Yeah, that was just an atrocious move. I thought bishop e7 was nothing after rook fc8, but bishop takes d7 is just massively strong. And yeah, after hg, I just somehow missed that I have just no way to contest the c file. Like his bishop's trapped on d7, but it doesn't matter. He's just going to put a rook on c7, and I've got...
And we did see that happen in the game. It looked like you had a chance at some point later, like you may not have played it as strongest.
Well, at this point here, I just put my head in my hands and started calculating. I decided any kind of sort of just put the pawns on a6 and b5 and hope he can't break through wasn't going to work, so I tried to make some kind of counterplay. I thought bishop d3 was clever. I threatened bishop c4, which will clog the c file for one move, so I can play rook d8. And then I'll be okay. So he has to, after bishop d3, he has to play rook c7. And I'd calculated this entire line with a5. He can't take b7 and rook a3, bishop and rook g3, but I had missed a takes b5 in my calculations.
So you're saying
rook
after you played b5 here?
When I calculated this when I played bishop d3, I missed a takes b5, which just finishes me. I'd only considered bishop takes e6, and then after b takes a4, it's massively unclear. Because then I would be playing a3 and be queening some pawns, but here there's just no game to be played.
Indeed. So a tough loss. I mean, you did have the black pieces against one of the best players in the competition. How do you bounce back now?
Well, only in the U.S. Championship round robin can you lose a game and then get Kamsky the next day.
Oh, boy.
So, no, I mean, I'll have white against Kamsky. It'll be my second white of the event. My first white went pretty well, even though I failed to execute. So, yeah, I mean, it was very tough to start with 3 blacks, but yeah, it's a long tournament, and it's not by any stretch over. Nobody's really grabbing such a commanding lead. I guess Lenderman's really on form, but it's a long event, and just have to gulp it down and play the next one.
Indeed. Well, right attitude. Thanks for graciously joining us, Grandmaster Sam Shankland. We wish you the best in the rest of your games.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, tough loss in the second loss. Is the first loss of the event?
Are we still on?
Yeah, we are.
Oh.
It's okay. Is your first loss?
Yeah, it's my first loss
of the event. But he'll be back to go after Kamsky in the next round. No easy games here at the U.S. Chess Championships. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Yeah, he'll be back as long as we don't keep adding losses to his record.
Exactly. Well, it's a very, you get a very sour taste in your mouth when you lose a game literally from the opening, because all of those moves up to h7, h6 have likely been played before, in a bad misjudgment there in terms of the ending by Sam, not recognizing the fact that the bishop on d7 is actually a monster bishop, not a prisoner. but rather doing very effective work. The other game we had was between, the other result, pardon me, that we had was between Josh Friedel and Var Akopian.
And you thought that was a little disappointing from Akopian's point of view, didn't you? Because you liked his position. He was white.
Right, and I was speaking with him, I was speaking with both during the break, and both players agreed that the position was balanced at the time that a draw was agreed. And Josh was very pleased with himself because he had chosen a defense that he had never played before. It worked out like a charm, and Var was bitter because he had spent quite some time with his second, Gabriel Sargsyan, preparing this game, and one of the things they didn't look at was the defense that Josh chose. So that's always...
It's funny that you describe Var as bitter, because I just think of Var as always having a smile on his face.
It's
right?
true.
It's hard to imagine him really bitter.
Right, but it was strong. But he was like disappointed. There
yeah,
you go.
Disappointed. I hear
there you
you.
Go.
Well, that's the value of surprise. And as we mentioned earlier, Grandmaster Josh Friedel has a surprisingly strong record against a higher rated player than him, Varujan Akopian.
Right.
So just one of those interesting matchups where he's won more games than he's lost, and here, a comfortable draw with black. So a good opponent for him, and maybe he'll bounce back now.
Hopefully, because Var has gone 4 draws now. He hasn't found a position that he really enjoys playing, and yet he comes into this event as one of the highest rated players. Speaking of high rated players, one of the pre-tournament favorites, Alexandra Onishchuk, is in our studio waiting to be interviewed by Maurice Ashley.
Thanks, Yaz. I am with Grandmaster Alexander Onishchuk after his first win of the competition. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you.
Well, you've been methodical so far, but this time you put the hammer down to get a victory. Did you think you surprised them in the opening when you played this move, bishop to b5?
Well, first of all, I think, first of all, he surprised me with his opening choice, because lately he always plays the Grunfeld, and today he played the Slav, and I didn't play Queen e2 that often, maybe just one game. Usually I play knight h4, so we're surprising each other. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't remember the theory. I thought that actually bishop g6 is not the best move. Maybe knight b8 right away was more precise, but I couldn't quite remember. So bishop g6, bishop b5, and frankly, I thought during the game, I thought that I'm already much better. Because if, so what are his choices here? Knight b6 or knight b8, right? Well, also h6, the move he played. Yeah, if knight b6, then I can simply play this move. And if, let's say a6, then I go a5. And during the game, I thought that I have a very good advantage here. A takes b5, a takes b6, and then I go rook a7 at some point, and I can bring my bishop to d6 or c5. I mean, it looks like it's a very unpleasant position for him.
Right, the computer's agreeing with you, dominant position. Yeah. So it looked like he was just in trouble really early on. After this bishop to b5 move, he looked in terrific trouble. And then you got this tremendous position later when you were able to take on e6. Did your eyes light up when you saw you could grab on e6?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. Well, actually, I saw this idea right away. I think, when did I see this idea? Maybe almost when he played h6, I already saw this idea.
Really?
Yeah, I thought for like 10, 15 minutes, because this was a very important moment. I had some other choices too. So once I played bishop d7, I pretty much saw this idea with rook g3 and bishop e6 as well.
Wow, excellent. And then it seemed as if you had some easier ways to knock him out. You kind of let him have just a little bit of a chance.
Yeah, honestly, in this position, he played bishop c4. Yeah, I thought that this move is probably the most precise one. And after rook b2, I should play e6. But somehow I didn't see how I win after this move. And I don't know, I can play h4 and then he goes a4. And I was a little bit nervous about the pass a pawn.
Well, that's like exactly.
In the second round. Remember
a couple small technical problems there, but.
Pass a pawn, indeed, right.
We were just talking about how interesting it was that Onishchuk said that he saw all of this sacrificing double rook checkmate after h6, just after black played h6.
He saw quite deeply into the position, and he apparently saw the whole line that the game went very early, and it just seems that Alex is dead on when he said that the move bishop g6 was just simply mistimed, and this move bishop b5 just throws the monkey wrench into black's position, and he played very good chess to lasso the point.
And I think we have them back on with our mics, so we'll finish up that interview.
Oh, well, let's go back to Maurice.
All right, sorry for those technical difficulties, Alex. Alex's mic fell off. He got all excited trying to show moves there. So in this position, you had the ghost of the past a pawn that happened in round 2.
Exactly.
It's funny how those things kind of affect games later in the competition.
Yeah. That's why I played the bishop d7 to stop a4, and yet he played the a4 anyway.
You can't get past.
I have to deal with this a pawn again.
Anyway, okay, so now you've got your win. You're +1. You're still chasing the leader, Alexander Lenderman. How do you get ready for tomorrow's game?
Well, tomorrow I play with Josh Friedel, right? Well, I'll just play another game. Look, it's still 7 rounds. I have more blacks, of course, but you know, I think the tournament has just started. It's a long tournament, and it's very nice to win a game, because it's so hard to win a game in this tournament. You know, in round 2, I thought I had a winning position, almost winning position, and more time, but my opponent played just all brilliant moves, all best moves. Yeah. So yeah, I'll just prepare like usual.
Let me ask you 2 more questions. Do you feel like this tournament is the strongest U.S. championship you've ever played in, with only grandmasters? Do you have that sense that it's actually tougher than the others?
Yeah, probably. Maybe we don't have big favorites here. Gata used to be big favorites a few years ago, and also Hikaru. But yeah, I think I have the sense that this is probably the most solid tournament, U.S. championship I've ever played.
Indeed. And finally, you're a triathlete. You say that there's 11 rounds is long versus 9 rounds. What's the difference between a 9-round and 11 rounds? Seems like only 2 rounds.
I think I'm one of the oldest players here, but I think having more rounds is in my favor, because I remember last year with each round I felt stronger and stronger, and same is here. So I hope to play even better towards the end. Indeed.
Picking up steam, Alexander Onishchuk. We wish you the best in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you, Marius.
Grandmaster and triathlete, feeling good about himself. It's just started, he said. It just started 4 rounds in. With a win is Alex, and trying to crawl up that leaderboard. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
So the longer the tournament, the more chances he has to win. So could just make it a double round robin.
Right.
Be here all month.
Well, nothing like a victory to put the wind in your sails and make you look forward to the next rounds of the tournament. Really, it's night and day. And chess, really, I mean, we like to think of it as a game of skill, pure skill, but it's also really a game of confidence. And the greater your confidence, the better you feel about your play, and you make your decisions a lot more quickly rather than double guessing. You lose a game, and suddenly the next thing you know, you're spending a lot of time on your clock analyzing. So Alex, happy, very, very happy to get this victory under his belt.
Very interesting. And it was interesting how Onishchuk also said, did you see a little bit of a dig at Gata? He said there's no clear favorite this year.
Yes.
Fighting worries a little bit. But let's go see if our tournament leader, Lenderman, has finished the job against Ray Robson.
All right.
And I think perhaps he was also referring to the fact that Nakamura hasn't played the last few years, and that the other players were getting stronger. So I don't think he was necessarily trying to diss Gata Kamsky, but it does kind of show that we might have a very tight tournament here, and that the top players think that. It's not just us hyping it up.
Absolutely. And again, you know, we do have a junior player in the field. Oftentimes the junior was kind of like a target, but Daniel Naroditsky is not an easy target at all. So I see a very, very balanced field. We're looking at the game.
That's right. And, you know, it was interesting at Onishchuk's word choice. He didn't say, he was a little reluctant to say strongest, but he said the most solid.
Right.
It's
balanced field.
Without Nakamura, maybe, he was a little tentative to say strongest, but the fact is there's no weakies. There's no easy day. There's nobody to target, as you were saying.
Fair enough.
Until maybe later in the tournament, there will be somebody who has an awful result and people will gather around him like vultures.
Exactly. Sharks in the water, they smell blood. It wasn't just so clear to me why Sam actually gave up in the final position. So if you don't mind, I just brought up that game, the finish of the game between Onishchuk and Sam Shankland. We went to this position, we left it at this position, rook e5. Maurice was saying there's still some troubles, some difficulties for Onishchuk to rope in the victory. There is this pass pawn over here on the A file that has to be dealt with, and that was dealt with right away with this move, rook a7, getting behind the pass pawn, threatening it with capture. Sam came up with his king g6. So what Sam's anticipating is that as soon as white captures this pawn, he's got this rook e8, so he could recapture this pawn on e5. That didn't take place. Instead, after king g6, Onishchuk found a very nice move, g4, setting up for bishop f5 check, is followed by the victory of the win of the pawn, rook takes a4. King stepped aside with king h6. Bishop went back to f7, and suddenly, oh my, this is a real problem now for black, because there's simply no way for him to deal with this runaway criminal. This pass pawn on e5 is going e6, e7, and thanks to this bishop controlling the promotion square, that was where Sam threw in the towel, and a good moment to stop the game.
As we mentioned earlier, Akobe and Friedel was a draw, so we see that position getting set up there. It's funny how Friedel was playing right next to his picture today.
Oh, really? In the background.
It's funny how it sometimes, occasionally, will match up.
Very nice. If you don't mind, I'd love to go to our leaderboard, our leader in the tournament, Grandmaster Alex Lenderman. He, when we had left it, he was exchange up, appearing to be cruising to victory. Let's see what the current position is, and we're going to go back just to where we had left it. When we had left it, we were about these parts. Knight c4 had been played. Bishop g4 attacking white's rook on f1. The rook moved away, rook f1, also, by the way, protecting the bishop on f7. I'd like to keep the pieces nice and tight and coordinated. Knight d7, queen a3. Naturally, when you're ahead material, we tell this time after time on all of our summer camps, trade when you're ahead material. White's up a pawn in an exchange. He seeks to trade queens. Bishop h3, rook f2, b5. The queen trade was executed. Knight e5, a very nice tactical shot. There's a discovered attack against the knight on c5.
So a tactic to trade, basically.
Right. Bishop takes, rook takes would be fine for white, would be great for white.
Yeah, really would make life easier.
So Ray's doing his best to keep as many pieces on the board as he possibly can.
Sure, he's down on materials, he wants to keep things complicated. Another thing you teach at your summer camps, I'm sure.
Exactly. Knight e4, rook f4, bishop f5, and let me get it.
And so now the knight on e5 is in take, and if the knight on e5 moves, then the bishop on f7 is loose. So how does white tactically get out of this little jam?
Exactly.
Bishop d5 doesn't seem to quite work because then bishop takes e5.
Well, there's an issue here with knight takes g6. The problem with knight takes, you would like to recapture with the pawn and not to trade any more pieces, but the problem is this bishop on f7 hems in the king on h8, so you can't go king to g8 against a rook check.
So now bishop h6 would be required.
Right, and now here I think I have this nasty retreating move, gaining a
that's
tempo.
A really nice move.
2 black pieces are in capture, and one of them is going to leave the board.
That's a sweet move. So if by contrast you play, wait, so if you play rook takes h6 check in that position, then just king g7?
Yes, so the immediate capture would indeed allow this move king g7 when there are 2 white pieces under capture, and for example, after a rook retreat, black could struggle on. But let's go back to this situation. I'm anticipating that Ray will have to capture.
He's mentioning, Maurice Ashley is mentioning a possible idea that after bishop d5, king g7.
Oh, okay, so once again, takes, check, bishop h6, bishop d5, attacking this knight, attacking this bishop.
So the idea is, I guess, g5. If bishop takes c4, you have g5.
No, there's a rook c7 check.
Okay, rook c7 check.
Yeah, that's a nasty, ooh. Then the king has to give up the protection of the bishop.
So instead of capturing on e4, yeah.
Right, you get in that, and that's winning. That's a stone cold win. So let's just, let me see what has been played. Just a moment, I'll refresh my board for a second.
So this knight takes g6 is what
That's the crucial move. That's the key move.
And Lenderman he's raising his arm. He's about to make a move. Well, he's always got that green juice next to him. I guess that's his elixir. Right, Carlsen's got his orange juice, and Lenderman has his green juice, which is kind of an acquired taste, right?
What's in the green juice?
All sorts of good things. Spinach, pears, everything green.
Oh, very nice.
Parsley.
By the way, knight takes g6
knight
was
takes g6
executed.
Was played, okay.
Okay, this was what...
and we've got Maurice joining the conversation here. What do you think, Maurice?
Well, Lenderman's playing like a genius. That's what I think. I mean, he looks like he should be U.S. champion right now. Too bad you can't coronate him after only 4 rounds. But he's playing some beautiful moves. In this position, as we saw, he did find the fantastic sacrifice, knight takes, and after h takes on g6, rook h4 check. Ray thought he had him tricked with this move, bishop to h6. In fact, Yaz, you would have been tricked with bishop d5 if you played it, because knight to f6, a very sneaky retreating move, saving the knight and attacking the bishop, and now rook takes on h6 doesn't do anything because of king to g7, and you can't save that bishop. So that move was not the key one. In fact, the right move here after rook h4 check, bishop h6 is what the youngster played. Rook to c7, thwonk. Seeing that this bishop is dead to the world, the king, as you pointed out, can't come help because of a nasty discovery. So it seems like Lenderman has found just the right way to play. And in fact, this line is worse for Ray than the other line of taking a bishop takes g6. So it looks like Lenderman is starting to drive the ponies home right now.
Wow. Well, we thought that that if Lenderman were to win this game at 3.5 points out of 4, he's doing a demolition job, while so many of his rivals, nearest rivals, are having a tough time winning even in a single game. So you're right. You can't coronate him this early after round 4, but he's definitely in form, top form.
That's right, and let's take a look and see about Gata Kamsky's game against Sergei Ehrenberg, because earlier you thought it was really balanced, but it seems like perhaps the game is getting to be a little bit more interesting than we might thought.
Oh, wow.
You thought there might be a lot of trades and that perhaps we would see even an earlier handshake, but instead, Gata's got something interesting going.
Well, something happened very different from what Maurice and I had been looking at. We had anticipated queen c7. We didn't take a look at this move, queen c3. We were more concentrated, I must say, in our analysis. We were calculating more forcing lines with captures. Queen c3 was Gata's move to try to keep as much tension in the position as possible. And I'm not sure I like the decision that Sergei played. Here he came up with f7, f5. My first instinct is to say that this was more of a critical moment and that Sergei may have erred with this move f5. But
so the idea is that if taking on d4 after queen takes d4, that rook on h8 is hanging, but after takes on d4.
After takes on d4, takes on d4, you're right, the rook on h8 is indeed hanging. After rook g8 with the counterpunch of bishop g7 or possibly knight takes c5, White might have been worried that he had overplayed his hand. Not sure.
Well, you could still play knight d6 check, similar to what happened in the game.
Yeah, like after knight d6 check, for example, king over, I guess you got to take on f7? Because otherwise knight c5 is really undermining you. I was just thinking about.
Well, you could play. What about b4?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's just see that.
Well, knight takes f7 looks like a move to analyze first because it's more forcing.
Exactly. But b4 is a move, and okay.
But then bishop g7. So yeah.
Bishop g7 does skewer an exchange for black. I don't know. First instinct is I'm not feeling that f7, f5 was the right choice, but let's see how the game did unfold. f5 was played, and finally we do get an imbalance, but this imbalance, this majority, I actually rather like for white, only because this passed pawn is so dangerous, and furthermore, black's majority on the queen side is actually protecting his king. So it's not a majority that you want to advance.
And now white also has this easy play, b4, a4, b5, which is exactly what Gata did. And so I wonder what the problem was. I suppose that after takes on d4, there was a line he really didn't like, because I think he would have preferred to take that pawn himself rather than allow white to end up taking on e5.
Exactly, and getting into this position where the problem with this pawn on b6 is that you always have this constant back rank checkmate fear, right? This pawn on b6 is a snake close to your king, and it means that you always have to be fearful of some type of tactic that will, like, for example, this is the kind of position where you could play a queen c4 takes e6, and thanks to a back rank checkmate, you know, you would win the game. So definitely Gata is looking good at this point.
Now they do say that the knight on e6 is a great blockader, so that's one thing that Sergei has going for him.
Mm-hmm. But I
like those major pieces of white. I mean, being able to play the move rook d6 is so huge, right?
That is huge.
And so let's take a look. Why is he able to play this move?
The problem, exactly. The problem is if we take the pawn from black's perspective, this move queen f6 is simply monstrous.
Pin city, huh?
Right. First of all, the knight is pinned to the queen. Secondly, again, that back rank mating problem. The knight is pinned to the rook. In the meanwhile,
queen f7 is on the menu, right?
Queen f7, queen takes h6.
We really want to get that knight into the game as well. So
queen takes f5. The whole black kingside structure is collapsing. And conversely, just as you said, Jen, you really can't live with the rook on d6. And if you do take the rook with rook takes d6 and then try to play something like queen f7, not to allow the queen to f6, you were mentioning how you would like to get your knight into play. Well, guess what? You can get your knight into play with a tempo. And that pawn is coming down to d7. I think that Gata is looking really, really good in this specific position. And I'm sure Sergei is seeing these very same variations and saying, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? This is really, really bad news.
Yeah, the tactics here are really looking up for Gata Kamsky. And I think, you know, maybe Sergei must have missed something in some variation, because there's no way he would have willingly gone for this strategically. I think he, you know, chess is always that combination of strategy and tactics. So maybe rook d6, he missed how powerful queen f6 was at the end of the variation, or maybe he thought he could take on d4, something like that.
Possibly, but I really do think it was an error of judgment. I think that when he played that move f5, he anticipated that he would get his knight to e6, where he was really, really safe and solid. And then came this rook d6 like a ton of bricks.
Well, yeah, that's hard to see so far in advance.
Well, yeah, but it
looks like you have that square covered.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that you could, you know, when you're on the other side of the board, it's the most natural move in the world to play the move rook d6. When you're defending, it's like maybe you mentally, you've got your bias, you tune that move out. But really, I think the error of judgment was that these majorities, this past Eve pawn versus the majority on the queen side, very, very favorable for white. Bad decision by Sergei. He's suffering now.
Well, this is exciting. Our top-rated player and our defending champion maybe getting back into the thick of things. Now, we've mentioned that today is a rest day for the U.S. Women's Championship.
Indeed.
Players are doing all sorts of different things. Some of them can't get enough of chess. And in fact, we do have one of our competitors coming off of her first win here at the U.S. Women's Championship. Alisa Melekhina is with Grandmaster Ashley.
Indeed, we managed to rope Alisa to come in and join us on the show. Actually, she wanted to. First of all, welcome, Alisa.
Okay, thanks again for having me.
You won yesterday, so it must have felt pretty good. What have you done in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have too much time to celebrate. Even though we have a rest day today, that's a bit of a misnomer because that actually means that even though we're not playing, we have a lot of more time to get prep in, and that creates a sense of urgency because you don't know how much time your opponent is spending preparing for you. So that's pretty much what I've been doing.
You've been spending the whole day, so you get a rest day, you're not going out enjoying the sun. You come here to watch the games of the U.S. Championship.
I did. I finally got a chance to catch the broadcast and the commentary. You know, when I'm playing, I don't really see what's going on, so it's cool to come to the club and see everything that goes on behind the scenes here.
I will forgive you for that then. So far, you have a point. You've been watching the men's games, though. Which game has caught your eye?
Well, the one that I can relate to the most is the Schliemann between Molnar and Guriev because I'm an e4 and an e4, e5 player. It's a very interesting matchup. It's a clash between two very creative players, so I expected some fireworks early on in the game, but it seemed to have fizzled out a bit. But it is definitely exciting to watch, and I'm rooting for Mag here. I'm rooting for the other wild card.
Really?
Yes.
Why are you rooting for him? Just because he's a wild card?
Well, I mean, he's a wild card for a reason, right? I mean, he plays exciting chess. I've played him in tournaments a few times, so I'm familiar with his more unconventional style. I do judging for the Game of the Year contest for the U.S. Chess League, and his games always come up. So, yeah.
Yeah, he does have a wild style about him. He loves to attack. Any other players in the championship that you've played? Give us a little tidbit on their style.
I've played Robson before, Lenderman, Shankland. Have a pretty decent score against the field. Actually, I've drawn Mac a few times. I drew Shankland the one time I played him. I played b6 against him on move 1 after e4.
Oh,
so that, yeah.
The Owens defense.
Exactly.
Just reel it out.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing any of the Owens defense in either of the championships this year. But yeah, I had a pretty good game against Robson a few years ago, and from what I know about him, he's a very resourceful player. He puts pressure on his opponents at just the right moment. And I was looking at his game earlier against Lenderman, where he did a very interesting exchange sacrifice. I thought it would work out positionally in his favor, but then I think it may have been a mistake to take the pawn earlier on in the game, and he lost control.
Indeed, his position does not look great here. Well, you do have a rest day today, but you have a big game tomorrow against the youngest player in the field. She doesn't have many games in the database. How could you prepare for Ashrita Eswaran, who's really the talk of the Women's Championship right now?
Absolutely. She has barely any games in the database, but it's not too long ago that I was in her position as a young up-and-coming player. And I remember that I tended to do the best when other people used to underestimate me. So I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm taking her as seriously as I am any other player. And, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but there's not much that I can give away because, you know, there's not much that I can do to prepare for her concretely, but it's more about getting positions that I'm comfortable in, and what I can count on is having my experience show.
And experience, you're a veteran at 22.
Well, this is my 6th U.S. Women's Championship, wow. 5th time being in St. Louis. So, yeah, I mean, I'm only 22, so I still feel young, but then you see this new generation of players rising up.
Yeah, she says she still feels young. It's sad to hear it at 22. You're a babe. A question, when you see a young player like this playing the way she's playing, I mean, she's had fascinating endings. Actually, both her endings have been the fodder for Twitter and the internet, because they've been really attractive endings. You can but sort of root for her, although you can't, obviously, because you need to win your game against her. But she's really been playing some fine, interesting chess.
Yeah, well, I always like to root for the underdog. So, of course, in her other matchups, I'm rooting for her, and I can see that she's definitely a fighter. Indeed, and that's what it takes to win these championships. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alisa, and good luck in the rest of the championship. Okay, thanks very much. Alisa Melekhina here with us, giving her insights on her day off from the Women's Championships, but we'll need to get back to battle tomorrow. Back to you guys.
And I know exactly what she's talking about, too, when you get those free days and you think, oh, it's so wonderful, now I don't have to play. And the next thing you know, you're either watching around or you're spending so much time preparing. You said, my God, my free day wasn't really free. I spent my whole time training myself, and you don't store up your energy. I like the approach by Grandmaster Walter Brown, and I found his approach something I could never replicate. He said to me, and I really recall his words very vividly, he said, you shouldn't be preparing at the tournament. You should be prepared before the tournament. Play tennis, go swimming, play ping pong, watch TV. Don't prepare at the tournament.
But not everyone can do that.
Exactly. I could never do that. I mean, great words of advice from a 6-time U.S. chess champion. Prepare before the tournament, not at the tournament. And yet, when I'm at the tournament, I just feel like, gosh, I play Gata Kamsky tomorrow. I've got to prepare. And I fall into the trap of sometimes spending too much time preparing my games.
Indeed, yeah. So how to deal with the rest of it? I think that strategy might make most sense at the beginning of the tournament, and then later people might have to tweak their opening strategies based on the situation of the tournament.
Exactly.
And also based on what their opponents have played. So maybe the ideal is try to just focus on relaxing for the first 3 days and then be realistic that towards the end of the tournament. I mean, I read an interview with Kramnik once where he said he's preparing up to the last minute of the game.
Right.
And that's also a round robin. So if Vladimir Kramnik says it, then you figure this is an issue that goes all the way down the line. That, even if ideally they would be relaxing, most players just can't help themselves. Right.
And I remember Garry Kasparov, Viktor Korchnoi preparing literally to the last minutes of the game. One guy actually was very interesting, was Anatoly Karpov. He didn't necessarily like preparing to the last minute on the game. Quite often, hours before play, he would just like to play blitz and warm up and keep a sharp mind, but not necessarily studying.
That's exactly the opposite of what most
you wanted to be relaxed.
Most people tell kids that they should not play blitz during a tournament. Well, it's so exciting, these chess championships in St. Louis. We've got the Singfield Cup coming up. Some other exciting chess news. We've got the Millionaire Chess Open. Yes. That's good for chess in America. And it's in Las Vegas. Actually, the U.S. Chess Federation hosts a tournament in Vegas every year as well, the National Open. And one of the great things about chess in Las Vegas is that in addition to playing chess, you can play poker. And, I love poker. In fact, I'm working with Poker Stars on some initiatives to promote chess and poker together.
All right,
They've actually been the sponsor. Alisa mentioned that she was the one of the judges for the best game for the U.S. Chess League. And it's interesting, not everybody knows, but Poker Stars has been the sponsor of the U.S. Chess League for 9 years.
Fabulous. I didn't know that. That's wonderful.
Indeed, yeah.
Great.
And we've got a little bit more on the Millionaire Chess Open, some details, and right after that, we'll bring another of our star players here for you with an interview with Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, who is the creator of the Millionaire Chess Open.
Welcome to the world of the surreal. You take the blue pawn and return to the comfortable world of chess tournaments as you know them. You take the red pawn, and I'll show you a chess event beyond your wildest imagination.
and we have one of our young grandmasters with Maurice Ashley, Daniel Naroditsky.
Thanks, Jen, with Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky after a draw with last year's runner-up Alejandro Ramirez. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So you played some unusual chess in the opening of the game. We were remarking on this line when you played the move A3 and Queen F3. It was quite a funky sequence of moves. Is that something that's new, or are you especially prepared?
I think it's theory. I mean, I've seen that before, this idea with A3 to stop knight B4 and Queen F3, and I thought I got a good position. So
you actually looked like you had a very nice position out the opening. What happened after that?
Okay, I'm looking at Houdini's assessment here. I think maybe I played well, and I thought this position was, with the Queen and Rook versus Queen and Rook, I just thought that was drawn. But perhaps I could have found chances, or somewhere earlier in the middle game. I'll have to take a look.
Did you feel disappointed? Did you feel like you had an edge throughout?
I absolutely think
something was there.
Yeah, I think I had an advantage. I sort of let it go multiple times. So yeah, pretty disappointing. But you know,
when you were sitting at the board, that feeling came over you, and you decided that you didn't want to continue this position. Houdini is saying you still have some chances to fight.
Yeah, no, I played H4, which I think is logical, but it's wrong because it gives him a chance to consolidate. I didn't realize that I actually have an initiative here, like Queen F4. And okay, it's still probably objectively drawn, but I could have probably found more chances here.
Indeed. Did yesterday's game maybe affect you in this game? How do you manage your emotions after a loss in the championship?
Well, I felt more aggressive today. I wanted to play for a win, obviously, and not sort of collapse and kind of let the tournament go. And I think I did pretty well out of the opening. But again, a little disappointing that I didn't at least give him more of a fight, but it is what it is, I guess.
And who do you play tomorrow?
Ray Robson.
You get Ray.
Yeah.
And Ray's having a very tough time of it right now.
Yeah, he is. I think he's losing. So.
Does that help your mindset? Do you feel better that your opponent's having a tough result before you get to play them?
Not really. I just play the best moves. I try not to pay attention to what kind of tournament my opponent is having, because obviously at this level you can play an individual game at a very high level. So.
Indeed. Finally, your mom was here on the show earlier. We got her to interview. She was chatting about today. What are you doing for Mother's Day?
I don't know. Not too much, I guess.
Better hurry up and get some flowers, young man.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tournament, so.
Understood. I'm sure a win or a draw is probably more of a gift for her.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on the show, and we wish you the best in the rest of the tournament.
Appreciate it.
Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, the youngest competitor in the men's competition, drawing today, and get some flowers for your mom. Back to you, Jen and Yan.
I have an idea for a Mother's Day gift. Actually, the producers brought some sushi for Maurice. Grab it. It's right there in the fridge.
Lena will love the sushi, right? Well, that was interesting what Daniel's saying, that he doesn't really pay too much attention to how his opponent played. And I take just the opposite view. If I really, really like it when I'm playing an opponent who just lost in the previous round, I take the attitude, if my opponent's drowning, throw him an anvil, jump on.
You seem so mild-mannered.
Yeah, but the killer comes out at the chessboard, right?
Right, we were talking about that earlier, the opposites, how somebody like Ray Robson has this really aggressive chess style and yet is so sweet in person.
Right, soft-spoken.
Is Shritha another one?
Definitely, but you see, at their board, they go for your lungs, boy. They're tough competitors. So I take the attitude, if my competitor is having a hard time, keep piling on the pressure. Ray's struggling to save this position, but I think we need to do a break, Jen. What do you say?
Yeah, I think we got another result in. I believe the Gata Kamsky game might be over as well. So yeah, why don't we find out what's going on in all of these games if we can. Oh yes, I do. I see Ehrenberg and Gata Kamsky both getting up from the board. So. And
it looks like.
I would imagine that would be a draw because I don't think Gata could have won so quickly. Do you think he could have won so quickly?
I do. I think Gata had. I think he had just a dominant position. We'll find out.
And perhaps there was a blunder in time control that just sealed the deal.
I think it was just a big position, seriously. I think that at that point,
just after Rook
D6, I mean, I think that was the splat. That was the killer kind of move. And I didn't see, I think Sergei played H5. But after Gata dominated on the D file, it was really too much. I think that Gata has scored his first victory in this U.S. Championship.
Oh, and here it is, and this is the final position. And you are absolutely right. This just looks like.
Well, this was the position.
Oh, this is just an analysis. Okay, I was like, wow, this couldn't be the dean position.
Because that was what we looked at, and it was just it was dead meat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's try to get some of these games up after we take a quick break.
Be surprised, be intrigued, be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, part of the admissions team here at Paul Mitchell School St. Louis. Our campus is located on Maryland Plaza, right here in the gorgeous Central West End.
I chose Paul Mitchell, the school St. Louis, because I visited other schools, and when I was at them, I just felt like the energy level wasn't the same. It wasn't as elevated as it is here. When I came here, it just felt right. Everybody looked great. Everybody had such a great attitude. The facility was really clean and just so much more advanced.
Technology can truly enhance your education. When we brought in Chromebooks and we started using the smart TVs, we really tapped into the 21st century learner.
Being a student at Paul Mitchell is great because the learning leaders, they're there to guide you in the right direction. They give you the opportunity to make decisions on your own.
They accept you for who you are, and they're always welcome and honest and open.
We have encouraged our guests to post Google reviews. So far to date, have over 100 reviews with an average rating of 4.5 stars.
So I like that this isn't just for hair and beauty, but it's also a business college. You can learn hair, you can brush it, you can tease it, you can learn all of that, but to do business, that's something that really takes a whole different level of education.
Whether we're in the classroom or at the color bar, we're always having a great time at Paul Mitchell, the school St. Louis.
Being a student at Paul Mitchell gives you a lot of opportunity for when you're ready to get out into the real world.
Thank you for taking a sneak peek of our campus, and we can't wait for you to come and see what a Paul Mitchell education can do for you.
Welcome back to the St. Louis Chess Club and the 2014 U.S. Chess Championship. We've got defending champion Gata Kamsky with Maurice Ashley to talk about the finish of his game against Sergei Ehrenberg.
Indeed, a four-time champion, Gata Kamsky, having won his first game of the championship. First of all, thanks and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maurice.
Gata, you hadn't won a game yet after 3 rounds. You mentioned that had never happened to you before at the championship. Is this the strongest championship you've ever played in?
Well, without Nakamura, I can't really say this is the strongest championship, but it is very strong. We have a lot of underrated players who, some were not competing for years, maybe, and some players who hadn't had a chance to compete. So, you know, they're very strong, but just it doesn't show on the rating.
Indeed, an all-GM field, as a matter of fact, which is the first time we've had that at the U.S. Championship. But we didn't get a chance to see the finish of your game. It looked like the game was somewhat even in the beginning of the game, but then you slowly outplayed him, and then you got to this really nice position. Take us through the finish here as to how you won the game.
Okay, so in this position, I thought that white is close to winning because I have very strong outposts on d6, and black's king is really boxed in, creating a lot of mating threats. So this is very unpleasant for black. So black played here f4.
You just push forward.
Okay, and then I played queen c4 with the idea of taking on e6 with the queen, trying to get the black queen away from protecting the a square. So black.
Let's just show that. Would you press new variation for me, please? Right. And you were planning to do this sacrifice.
Right, exactly, because if black takes on rook d8 and white recaptures the material.
Indeed, winning a piece because he has to block, and then you just get an extra knight here. Okay, so instead of that,
so black played
queen c4.
King c8, trying to move his pieces closer together, and I had to take on f4. Black has to take, and rook 1 d5, and I think basically the position is lost because it's just too many threats. Black blundered the pawn on c5 with queen f7. And after rook c5, black cannot recapture the rook because of hanging queen. So
nasty pin on that diagonal.
King b8 was played, and then rook c7. Again, following the tying up the material, and black here resigned because, as you just explained, queen g6 is losing due to queen d5, and if black takes the rook, then rook d8 mate.
And he gets mated. A vicious finish. Well, so you've got your win in your pocket. It's 4 rounds so far. One of your main rivals, Onishchuk, also won, and Gurayev had won his game. So you guys at the top are definitely chasing your leader, who is surprisingly Alexander Lenderman. How do you feel about the fact that he's currently in the lead, clear lead of the tournament?
Well, I'm not surprised. I think that was actually long overdue because Alexander has been playing in many international tournaments, and every game we played was major struggle, some even fantastic draws. And I always felt that he should be somewhere on top, but he didn't have a chance to play in many international tournaments, maybe for the last 2 years only. And now he has a chance to shine and to show his true worth. So it's nice to see him play well.
Fantastic. So who do you get tomorrow? Have you thought about it?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Okay, well, we wish you the best. Congratulations on your win. Wish you the best in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Our reigning champion, the 4-time champion, Grandmaster Gata Kamsky, showing his strength here in this 4th round of the U.S. Championship. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
That was what I would describe as power chess in the last 10, 15 moves of Gata's game, because he really played incredibly accurately to finish the game, and a very nice and important victory for our U.S. championship, defending U.S. champion he needs a little confidence to get some wind in his sails.
Points in order to keep pace with Alexander Lenderman.
Who, by the way, has got a great position against Ray Robson. I have
so a bit of a transformation here. He's no longer up in exchange, but now he's up two very promising pawns.
And get those doggies rolling. What I've seen is when we had left it, it was a pretty nice tactical sequence. We were back here with this move, rook c7 had been white's last move, and black is black is not able to stop this rook captures h6 check type of threat. So g5 was played, rook takes h6, king came to g7, attacking the rook as well as the bishop. A little bit of a surprise for me, I must say. g3, g4, again, a very tactical solution to the situation. I felt that this ending after rook a6, the rook versus the two pieces, but the problem is white has many pawns in the position. Passers on the queen side, passer in the center, and a potential passer over here. That was not Alex's choice. What he did instead is he went for g4, very tactical solution, takes, takes. Ray doing his best to try to cause white problems, activated his rook, trying to come down to d2. But look at this, check, king, bishop, rook. Now this key move, rook e6, if white can push this knight out of the center, then this pawn on e3 can get rolling, and that's exactly what happened. Knight drop back, and look at those pawns go. Check. And this is the last position I saw. The players have made moves, but it seems to me that these two pawns are monsters, and f7, e6, rook e8, and it's coronation time. That's what I'm seeing. I think our tournament leader, Alex Lenderman, at +2, 2.5 from 3, is going to go to +3.
I mean, they just made move 40, so I wonder if this game's not going to last much longer. I mean, f7 and rook e8 just looks devastating.
Exactly. So let's see
and
what...
and that did happen. It looks like f7 occurred on the board.
Okay, so we got this position, and Ray, doing his best to stay in the game, played knight e3, f7, as you mentioned, check, and rook comes back. Pay attention. There is the old threat of checkmate in 1, and h3 making
I think you need
luft.
to do more than 20 push-ups for missing that.
Right. h3 making luft for the king. And after h3, do we have a move? I don't really see how on earth Ray is stopping e5, e6, and rook down, and playing f8 equals queen.
Or even just rook e8 immediately. It's just...
Oh, you don't even need to protect it thanks to the bishop on b3. Agreed.
Yeah, this looks like we're going to probably see a resignation rather soon.
Right. Looks hopeless to me as well.
Great. Well, Alexander Lenderman, 3.5 out of 4. That's a big score in the U.S. Championship.
It is huge, and especially in a championship we've been talking about, is that on paper at least, one of the most balanced fields we've ever seen, an all Grandmaster field. It's one of the strongest tournaments. Maybe by rating both Onishchuk and Gata were both quick to say, well, we are missing Hikaru. So if we took out one player, put it in Hikaru, I'm absolutely convinced that would have been the strongest tournament on record.
That's right, and I like what Onishchuk said, the most solid.
The most solid, yes.
U.S. Chess Championship from a very solid player himself.
He should know.
And we have something from Maurice Ashley.
Indeed, without Hikaru Nakamura, the #1 player in the country, one of the top 10 players in the world, you really feel like the tournament has lost some of its shine. However, with so many grandmasters, in fact, an all-star field of grandmasters, you realize that you still have an incredibly powerful tournament. Now, speaking of Lenderman, he clearly is winning this position. This is just a bust. But I've seen him take the lead in a lot of tournaments before. He has the tendency to start off very, very strong, but then get tripped up later in the competition. So we will have to ask him that when he comes down here. I don't want to put any negative thoughts in his mind, but It's his track record. It's been his MO to take a lead early, even in monster competitions, and end up tripping later at the end. That's kind of losing his edge. We'll find out what he has to say about that and how he's going to turn that around here at these U.S. Championships. Back to you guys.
Good point. It's not all about a fast start, but a good finish, and that's crucial. Shall we take a look at some of the other games going on?
Yeah, what do we have left? So it looks like Lenderman's about to seal the deal. Kamsky and Onishchuk have both won their game. So it sounds like I was right about the men taking over for the women in terms of decisive games, right?
Right.
We're up to about 3 out of 4 now.
Yes, we've seen a few decisive games in the first 3 rounds, but the 4th round, things definitely heating up. I've just brought in the game between Molnar and Timur Gariev. Gariev going in today's round with a score of +1. So he was just trailing Lenderman by a half a point. And for him to keep pace, he's going to need to win today's game. This is the current position. I'm just going to go back a few moves to see what the history of the play has been up to this point.
When Alisa came for her interview on her rest day of the women's, she said that this game intrigued her, the creativity of both players.
Yes, and she's absolutely right. This is a game, I love these battles of ideas. Over here on the queen side, we see this very nice knight, which is entrenched on the b3 square, keeping this pawn on b2, which means that this rook on b1 is playing a very passive role, as black could always swing a knight over here to a4.
And then what, though? You have no pawn breakthroughs
Precisely.
or rook lines, right? This game, you still only traded 1 pair of pawns.
Oh, exactly. So what Timur is going to have to do to win this game is to open up the position a bit, and we're about to see exactly how he's going to go about doing that.
So a double threat on b2, and b3 is not playable because of knight takes c3 check.
That's a big check.
But it's certainly going to come up soon enough.
So knight c5 was played, rook d1, king b7, and here we seeing black just reorganize his pieces, and finally a move that I've been expecting for some time is Timur's last move. What Timur needs to do is to get his center pawns rolling. So I'm anticipating something like c7, c6, d5, and doubling rooks on the d file. So a prelude to that was rook to d8, and let me make sure I'm up to date with the players.
Well, we got bishop g5 in, so
bishop g5, rook d7 has been
So we won't be able to double rook so easily, but now the b2 pawn is more tender again.
At the moment, it's adequately defended. If I'm in Mac's shoes here, I'm a little bit worried that when this pawn comes to d5, my king might find itself suddenly getting all kinds of attention by black's pieces. So if I were in white shoes, I would probably want to come back with the move retreat with the move king e2 to d1, with the idea of playing king to c2, where I feel the king is a little bit safer on the flank rather than in the center, as well as to bolster this pawn on b2. At the moment, I still feel that black has an edge, but it's going to take some great technique to convert it into a material edge.
What about some sacrificial ideas here, just to play around? So if we play d5 here.
Sure. Let's have some fun. Why not? d5, well, I'll take it. So I'll give you your chance to do some sacrificing. Rook takes d5, yes. Jen?
Well, yeah.
And king has to come up because the knight was hanging. And now you want to do some sacrificing.
Well, I was thinking about a different variation, but I think we can also think about, were you thinking about rook takes d3 here?
I didn't see
The
the
problem is
follow-up.
we can't really grab on b2 because just king c2 forks the knight. So
right, it's a double attack.
If I could win a pawn, that would be nice, but...
Yeah, you want a pawn to go for that.
I was thinking about a similar line where I could play rook f2, like if you didn't take on d5 and let me take on e4. I was thinking then maybe rook d3, king d3, rook f2 would be interesting.
Right. So you want to get in some kind of an e4 break.
Or I thought, for some reason, I didn't think you were going to take on d5 because it allows me, for instance, maybe after rook d5, king c2, we could try king d7, just rook d7.
the doubling rooks on the d file,
Yeah, that's why I thought maybe you weren't going to go this way.
Right, which is the type of thing that I'd wanted to do a moment ago.
But you have knight b4.
Yeah, that well, knight b4, rook d2. That's a pretty checkmate. Let's show our viewers that checkmate.
That's a good one.
That is a very, very sweet.
Well, if checkmate. I take, then you get to mate me up a rook.
Yes,
down a rook.
Down a rook. So that's a
so
sweet
instead
mate.
You would have to. Well, after rook d2, bishop d2, rook d2 is it all over though?
Yes, it
is.
Because
if you go the other way, it's mate.
Right, but I was thinking that white might, instead of capturing the knight, play a move like rook d1, and still I'm not convinced that black has enough in this position to
it's fun
go
to
to
look
victory.
At knight a1, but
but
knight a1 check doesn't seem like it's that powerful. But
definitely the
you
pressure.
could just play rook a1, rook d3, and then maybe some consolidate.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just see what moves were played.
That's
by
all
the way.
possible. That's why I was thinking that maybe after takes on d5, instead of rook takes d5, allowing for these possibility of doubling the rooks on the d file, I thought that you were maybe just going to let me take on e4.
So you
like
had
you
expected
king c2, yeah.
And then you had wanted a sacrifice like this?
Yeah, and then I was considering rook takes d3, king d3, rook f2, because knight b2, king c2, right?
Right.
So here, and now we have some
two checkmate.
Play.
So like two wonderful checkmates. This is one. The king can't go to e3 thanks to this knight, so that's a lovely checkmate. And this is the second one. Oh no, that's not. I was going to play rook d2.
Well, yeah, the bishop's there, and knight b2 is not mate because the e3 pawn square is opened up again. But still, this looks really powerful. I mean, how many mate threats do we need?
Knight c5 was good enough.
And then the b2 pawn also under fire.
That was why I didn't want to
let
the rook on f7 into the game, and that was why, against the move d5, I was trying to keep that f file closed. Don't want to see that.
So after rook d5, king c2, rook d7, rook d1, we still didn't find anything for black, huh? But
nothing convincing. I don't see a convincing.
In all seriousness, I was looking at knight a1 check, but I guess you just take it, and then after rook takes d3, you just have. Well, at least you can't play rook d1 to trade everything because b2 is hanging at the end.
Exactly.
So that's kind of cool, but.
But this bishop is doing such great defensive work. I'm not. Oops, my diagonals have been terrible.
You're not sure we have much. Yeah, we kind of wanted that knight on b3.
Yeah, so like maybe something like a4, and I think white could be just fine, or perhaps just questioning, are you really planning on sacrificing an exchange? Putting the question to you, I mean to say, with a move like rook e1. Not an easy decision. I can make an argument for.
Yeah, I see what you're trying to say. Rook e1's a good move because it gives you some counterplay. For instance, in the line, rook d2 check, bishop d2, rook takes d2. Now, after something like king c1, rook b2, you might be able to play a move like rook e5.
Precisely.
Kind of highlighting that
the knight is overloaded. You can't take the rook without losing the rook here.
But even this, yeah, it's like pretty messy because rook takes g2. I guess rook back to e1.
Rook takes g2, say rook g5 just to stop this check.
Oh, rook
for a
g5,
second.
yeah.
Yeah,
even
and
better.
offering a trade of rooks. But again, it's promising for Gariev, but no guarantees of victory.
Yeah, some really exciting lines here, though.
Go,
Again,
definitely fun.
We got one of these mate in the endgame positions, right?
Right.
All sorts of fun mates in the endgame.
Well, one of the things I must say I really admire about Timur, somehow he's a headhunter, and he's able to weave some really beautiful checkmates out of, conjure up these mating nets in positions where you say, wow, where did that come from? So he's remarkably original in headhunting, and yet also, as we're seeing today, he can play the position very slowly, and just he had this better structure that came right out of the opening, and he's still the player with the advantage. And Mac, once more, is facing a difficult defense. What other games do we have?
We just have 2 games going on.
Ray's game as well as
Robson, Robson rather hasn't resigned yet. He has played a move. He played G4. So he thought that he still had something to kind of keep the pressure on.
Okay. I am not getting that game up on my screen, so at the moment I can't bring it up.
Well, if you recall in that position, he ended up playing G4. So yeah, you want to try refreshing the board?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm sorry. I do apologize, but I don't have an internet connection.
Well, we do see them up here on the board, and it looks like Lenderman is trying to figure out what to do after this move G4. I don't imagine it's going to give enough play for Robson, though.
Well, you definitely simply got to take it. You got to take it.
Yeah, you don't want to let him play G2, do you?
Well,
now we're getting a little close up on the board, so that's nice. So yeah, after takes on G4, knight G4.
Well, then we'll go rook E8. Well, let's bring Maurice in here and see what the computer how the computer is evaluating White's chances of victory. Maurice.
The computer has decided to go on vacation because this game is not worth its attention anymore. It's over. This is done. This is Crush City. The move H3 was played. G4 is just tossing a pawn into the shark's mouth. He could just take it. There's nothing that's going to happen after this move. Later, he might be able to pull off some check by capturing the pawn. But the problem of rook to E8 is on threat in this position. And what can he do? He can maybe try to bring his king back, but E6 is going to happen. There's just nothing to do here. This is a dominant position. Slowly but surely it's going to happen that this king will either enter because these pieces will have to back up to try to stop these pawns. And when that happens, it's just going to be a matter of time, or the pawns are just going to queen. So this game is really indeed over. Lenderman just has to be careful, milk the advantage home, and he'll be our sole leader, a full point ahead of the rest of the field. Robson, by the way, had 2 points coming into this round, so this has got to be a bad situation for him. It looks as though a move indeed was played after H takes G4. The pawn was snapped off, so Robson slowly running out of pawns on his chessboard. And by the way, look at that clock over there, 14 minutes left. You know Robson loves to get into time pressure. It's a bad deal to get into time pressure when you're at the moment 2 pawns down and 2 pass pawns down on top of it. So this game is over.
Well, it sure looks to me like the last move by Ray, G4, was just hoping, I don't know exactly what he was hoping, that maybe he could go to G3, but obviously H takes G4 just cries to be played. Once that move is played, I don't really see anything, like Maurice is saying, that would justify playing on. And
Ray
I would
looks
expect
resigned. Actually, I think he's about to resign because he doesn't have a game face on anymore. You see that?
No, he knows that something went wrong. I don't think his exchange sacrifice was bad. In fact, I thought it was quite inventive. It was just this follow-up, trading the C5 pawn for the D5 pawn. That really looked lame to me, and I'm sure he has regrets himself about that decision.
Yeah, sure. And it does look like it is his move again after takes on G4, and perhaps Ray is considering the resignation now. And let's go over to Maurice.
Indeed, that position you talked about, Yaz, is so fascinating. It's deeply instructive, this business of exchange sacrifices, particularly what it is that you captured. In this position, rook takes on E3. Looks like it just comes completely out of the blue. And after F takes on E3, the move knight to B4, and black's pieces are making incursions on the white position. You can see that this is a great knight. This bishop is fantastic on this diagonal. This bishop also has some power. And in this position, the move knight to E4 was played. Right now is where he made his mistake. When you are ahead, but when you have sacrificed an exchange, especially if you've done it for a bishop, you want to know the color of the bishop. In this case, it was a dark squared bishop. And the only pieces that can control the dark squares to fight back against this piece are these guys, the knights. because this light square bishop cannot. This piece is the only guy that can fight back, or this guy. So get a chance to get rid of the knights, snap him off. This is what he did not do. This was his best move here. So after this capture, which color you're attacking on? The dark squares, knight to a4. Highly unusual, but now you see that white's pieces can't easily fight back against the dark square attack, which is where the capture, the sacrifice on e3 took place. So if you had sacrificed it for a light squared bishop, it would have been the opposite. But